The historic election of 1932 put an end to the Republican leadership in the White House and began the Democratic reign. At that time, Roosevelt's 472 votes were the most votes ever won by a candidate in the presidential election. There are many lessons that we can learn from both the defeated President Herbert Hoover and the winner of the election, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Herbert Hoover believed that he would be able to win the re-election. He thought that his opponent in the Democratic Party, Franklin D. Roosevelt, would not be able to secure a victory because he had been stricken with polio in 1921. Believing that Roosevelt would not be physically fit to carry on a campaign, Hoover's confidence in his own re-election led to the decision of having a low-key campaign in the form of a traditional Rose Garden campaign. However, the election results led Hoover to regret his decision immediately. By underestimating the opponent and not campaigning to the best of his ability, Hoover had lost himself both the presidency and the favor of the American people. On the other hand, Roosevelt's victory also taught us a lesson. Although he was physically disabled, Roosevelt never wanted to appear weak in front of the American people. Instead of being in a wheelchair, Roosevelt wore leg braces covered by clothing and used canes and other people to lean on for support. Roosevelt's victory was a prime example that having a physical disability did not mean or affect the ability of one to become president.
During the election of 2012, both the Democratic and Republican parties had strong and weak points in their campaigns that affected the outcome of the election. In the Democratic campaign, Barack Obama's strategy was to attract the majority of people he had won over in his 2008 election rather than trying to gain more votes of those he had not won 4 years ago, such as independent voters. Although he did not have as much support from these voters, he still won the popular vote. In the Republican campaign, Mitt Romney and the overconfident GOP expected to win, even though there were early signs of a strong election for Obama. Romney had trouble accepting his potential loss, although he publicly conceded the election to Obama. The Republican candidate was astounded when he didn't win the election, and his arrogance got the better of him. In addition, although both candidates stretched the truth to some extent, Romney made many mistakes throughout his campaign that stirred up argument. For example, his 47% tax comment and his Big Bird statement elicited negative public attention, which hurt his campaign.
In both the election of 1932 and the election of 2012, the Republican candidates made the fatal mistake of underestimating their Democratic opponents. In 1932, Hoover felt that his power as a sitting president would guarantee him a second term. Instead, Hoover was so despised by the Americans nationwide that Roosevelt won the overwhelming majority of both the electoral and popular votes. In 2012, Romney expected a victory since many people were discontent with Obama. This lack of effort and presumptuous attitude was a fatal flaw in the Republican campaign during both elections. However, there was a bigger gap between candidates in 1932 than in 2012. The election of 1932 was a landslide, whereas the election of 2012 was really close, especially in the popular vote, perhaps because Romney's effort and commitment was much greater than Hoover's.